And I had a conversation this summer with a high executive at Minnesota, and he was talking about Anthony Edwards.
Yep, Ant-Man.
I heard during the course of the year that, they were double teaming me. He didn't know how to deal with the double team. Well, that's the highest respect that you can ever get.
But them doubling me definitely is like, bro, what is going on? So yeah, I be trying to figure it out, man. And so I don't know what to do, honestly. But it's not fun, of course.
Reportedly used a recent conversation about to explain one of the biggest differences between talented scorers and true championship-level superstars, the ability to consistently read and punish double teams. According to the discussion, a representative connected to the approach Jordan for insight on how Edwards could continue evolving offensively as defenses become more aggressive against him. Jordan's point was not simply about scoring. It was about processing the game at the highest level, recognizing defensive pressure instantly, creating opportunities for teammates, and controlling the rhythm of an entire offense instead of relying purely on athleticism or isolation scoring. For many former NBA players, solving double teams has always been one of the defining tests of superstardom because playoff basketball eventually forces every elite scorer to confront overloaded defenses designed specifically to take them out of games. Jordan himself faced those situations constantly and eventually evolved into a player who could dominate not only through scoring, but through manipulation of defensive schemes and trust in teammates. That is why comments like these resonate so strongly around the league. They frame Edwards not as a finished product, but as a young superstar still learning the deeper mental layers of championship basketball.
And I had a conversation this summer with a high executive at Minnesota, and he was talking about Anthony Edwards.
Yep, Ant-Man.
I heard during the course of the year that, they were double teaming me. He didn't know how to deal with the double team. Well, that's the highest respect that you can ever get if a team feels like they got to double team you. Now, how do you figure out a way to break that double team? Move without the ball, move into the post, get in scoring position so that the double team, you can act before the double, all those simple things. So,
reportedly described the solutions to double teams as simple things, which is what made the conversation around hits so hard across the basketball world. Jordan's point was not that Edwards lacks talent. It was that championship basketball eventually becomes about reading defenses, making fast decisions, and punishing pressure before it disrupts the offense. After struggling against elite defensive schemes in games against teams like the, Edwards himself admitted he was still learning how to handle constant traps and double teams. To older NBA legends, that learning curve is one of the defining moments in a superstar's development because every great scorer eventually reaches the point where defenses are designed entirely around stopping them. Jordan faced that reality constantly and his evolution into a six-time champion came from mastering not only scoring, but the mental side of controlling defensive pressure, trusting teammates, and manipulating the game at the highest level.
But them doubling me definitely is like, bro, what is going on? So yeah, I be trying to figure it out, man. And so I don't know what to do, honestly. But it's not fun, of course.
Openly admitting that he sometimes does not know how to respond to heavy defensive pressure is exactly why comments from carried so much weight. Jordan's message was not really about talent because nobody questions Edwards' athletic ability or scoring potential with the deeper issue was mentality, preparation, and whether modern stars are willing to master the exhausting details that separate highlight players from championship leaders. When Jordan discussed greatness, he often focused less on natural ability and more on discipline, repetition, film study, accountability, and the obsession required to solve problems under pressure. To many older NBA legends, that obsession is what defined Jordan's era. Great players were expected to adapt when defenses took away their first option, not simply overpower opponents with talent alone. That is why Jordan's comments resonated so strongly around the league. They framed Edwards not as incapable of greatness, but as a young superstar confronting the same mental tests every all-time player eventually faces.
It's hard to be hungry when you have. Simple as that. I mean, if you don't have, you are willing to do whatever you have. So my mental approach was go in, do my job, be the best basketball player I can be.
Reportedly suggested that modern stars receive fame, money, endorsements, and superstar treatment long before they accomplish the things earlier generations fought years to achieve. According to that mindset, the danger is not a lack of talent. It is the possibility that comfort arrives before the hunger fully develops. Jordan's era was built around obsession, constant criticism, and the pressure to prove yourself every single postseason before receiving universal praise. That is why older legends have become increasingly cautious about crowning Edwards too early despite his incredible athletic gifts and scoring ability, with the dot echoed that frustration during playoff coverage, warning analysts and fans not to rush Edwards into comparisons with all-time greats before he has achieved championship success or sustained postseason dominance. To many former players, the issue is not whether Edwards can eventually reach that level. It is whether modern basketball culture celebrates potential so aggressively that young stars stop feeling the desperation that historically pushed legends toward greatness.
Hey, ESPN, I love you guys. Don't try to make Anthony Edwards the face of the NBA. The face of the NBA is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Joker, and Giannis. You can't give it to people. They have to take it. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is taking it.
Has repeatedly warned against handing superstar status to before he proves he can consistently lead through the deepest levels of playoff basketball. Barkley's argument is rooted in something older NBA legends constantly emphasize: greatness is not awarded through highlights, popularity, or potential. It is earned through surviving pressure, solving defenses, and taking control when the games matter most. In Barkley's view, media narratives have started celebrating Edwards as the next face of the league before he has fully developed the habits and consistency required to dominate championship basketball. That criticism connects directly to comments reportedly made by about the mentality required for greatness. Older legends often believe modern stars receive endorsements, fame, and validation so early that the desperation driving previous generations becomes harder to maintain. To them, the concern is not whether Edwards has elite talent. It is whether he has reached the level of obsession, discipline, and mental sharpness needed to transform raw ability into sustained championship success.
I actually think Anthony Edwards, in my opinion, has regressed. If you guard him, you want him shooting threes, because if he's going to the basket, he's dunking on people, he's getting you in foul trouble, he's getting you into penalties sooner. When he shoots threes, even though he make them, think about this.
Even though he make them.
He's not Michael Jordan, and I think he's a great kid and he got a chance of being a great player. But I personally think he's regressed and become a jump shooter. He's not aggressive.
Saying has regressed hit hard because it framed the star not as a young player climbing toward greatness, but as someone whose growth may be stalling under the weight of hype and expectations. Barkley has consistently argued that Edwards talks and carries himself like a finished superstar before fully mastering the responsibilities that come with leading a championship contender. So when Edwards publicly welcomed the challenge of facing the playoff intensity that comes with players like, Barkley made sure viewers remembered that confidence alone does not earn respect in the NBA. To older legends, every generation eventually learns the same lesson. Talking is easy, but playoff basketball exposes every weakness, every bad decision, and every area of a player's game that still needs growth. That is the standard Edwards is now being measured against.
You know, when you're a great player, first of all, you bought all this smoke. You said you wanted to smoke. You said you wanted to smoke. I want the Warriors. And you got him. You had 1 point at halftime, and his energy level was down.
Used playoff struggles from as proof that potential and swagger are not enough to earn superstar status in the NBA. Barkley pointed directly to games where Edwards disappeared offensively, including performances where they needed their franchise player most and did not get the level of production expected from a future face of the league. To older legends, that is the real dividing line between exciting young talent and true championship-level greatness. Superstars are measured by how they respond when defenses tighten, pressure rises, and every possession matters, as echoed a similar perspective. While he openly praises Edwards' athleticism, explosiveness, and natural scoring ability, Shaq has repeatedly emphasized that respect in the NBA is earned through consistency, leadership, and postseason dominance. In his view, the league crowns players too quickly based on highlights and personality before they prove they can carry a franchise deep into championship contention year after year. For Shaq and many older Hall of Famers, Edwards still has to show he can transform raw talent into sustained playoff greatness before comparisons to all-time legends become legitimate.
Growing up as a fan, you see moments like this where players take over. Seen Steph do it, you see Hakeem do it, I've seen you do it, seen Magic do it. I need Amp to take over. I don't want to hear I don't want to hear the defense, special defense. I need him to step up. You know, we're talking about him being the new face of the league. These are the things that we have to go through. I need to see him figure it out.
Has consistently argued that the difference between talented stars and true all-time greats is how they respond when defenses remove their first option in the biggest moments. In Shaq's view, legends like, and eventually solved every defensive challenge placed in front of them through adjustments, leadership, and relentless control of the game. That is why criticism toward has intensified whenever he struggles against playoff traps and double teams with the. To older legends, greatness is measured by adaptation under pressure, not by athletic gifts alone. Shaq has still praised Edwards physically, even saying he is one of the few modern players strong and explosive enough to survive the physicality of older NBA eras alongside players like and. But Shaq also made a distinction many Hall of Famers emphasize: surviving an era is not the same as dominating it. That is why reactions became even stronger after Edwards dismissed older generations as unskilled. Publicly pushed back as well, defending the intelligence, toughness, and skill level of the players who built the modern NBA and challenging the idea that greatness from earlier eras can simply be ignored by younger stars who never truly studied them.
Thanks a lot, Anthony.
Yeah.
I think he should have asked somebody, maybe his father or his grandfather, about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Dr. J, Isaiah Thomas, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Clyde Drexler, all these guys, Dominique Wilkins. We had some of the most dominant players that's ever played. Well, also, too, you might want to talk trash when you won something.
Oh, that's true.
Responded strongly to comments from dismissing older NBA generations, especially during appearances discussing the state of modern basketball and respect for the game's history. Speaking on platforms like Byron Scott's podcast discussions, Magic emphasized that younger players need to study and appreciate the legends who built the league before making sweeping statements about eras they never experienced firsthand. For Magic, the issue was never simply about defending his own legacy with the. It was about protecting the respect earned by generations of players who transformed basketball through skill, toughness, and championship-level competition. Magic and many other Hall of Famers believe Edwards has extraordinary talent and the potential to become one of the league's biggest stars. But they also believe greatness requires humility, growth, and understanding the history of the sport. To older legends, dismissing players like, or entire decades of NBA competition without studying them reflects a lack of perspective that young stars eventually have to overcome if they want true respect from the basketball world.